Picking up where the last chapter left off, Mr. Gray carefully carried the lifeless body of the little girl back to her village. As he approached, the villagers noticed him, and their expressions quickly shifted from curiosity to suspicion. Soon, murmurs of accusation filled the air. "You took the life of an innocent little girl. How could you?" one villager exclaimed, their voice full of sorrow and anger. "I knew something was wrong the moment you first arrived in this village," another shouted. "You will pay for what you did to that innocent child, you monster," a third one added, the accusation heavy with disdain. "You're nothing but a coward, a soulless being, and a heartless excuse for a man," came another angry voice. The words cut through Mr. Gray's mind. Suddenly, the scene faded, and the angry voices were no longer real. They were just memories, replaying in his mind as he now fought for his life in the present. It was 9 p.m. in Japan, and the night air was filled with the sound of metal clashing as Mr. Gray faced off against a cult leader from the Red Skull sect. "Hey, you," the cult leader shouted, gripping his sword firmly. "I can see you're not fully focused on this fight." With a swift movement, he charged forward, his sword flashing in the dim light. "Don't worry, let me take care of that for you." Mr. Gray skillfully dodged the attack, his movements fluid but distracted, as if his thoughts were elsewhere. The cult leader, sensing an opening, grinned, feeling confident. "But seriously? You think you can come to my territory and try to take me down?" he taunted. "Huh. Then you must be a fool." Before the cult leader could finish his sentence, Mr. Gray moved with lightning speed, punching the cult leader's head to the ground with a loud smash. The cult leader, now dazed and disoriented, struggled to get back to his feet. "What are you waiting for? Finish him off," he shouted to his assistant. Unmoved, Mr. Gray stood tall, his eyes narrowing as he looked toward the assistant. In a calm but firm tone, he spoke in Japanese, "Donokonai de kudasai. Kokyu o tsuzuk tainoro." The assistant froze, her eyes wide with understanding. Mr. Gray turned back to the cult leader, his sword flashing in the dim light. With a swift motion, Mr. Gray snatched the necklace from the cult leader's neck and stabbed him, leaving him wounded but alive. "I'm not here to kill you," he said, his voice steady and unwavering. "But that doesn't mean you don't deserve to die, not after all the lives you've taken in the name of your pathetic cult. It's just not your time yet." With that, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small magical bead. Holding it firmly in his hand, Mr. Gray disappeared in an instant, leaving only the faintest echo of his presence behind. Puff! The cult leader, bewildered and still recovering from the encounter, whispered under his breath. Who was that?" The cult leader, still recovering from the encounter, shot a glare at his assistant. "And why the hell were you just standing there, doing nothing?" he demanded, his voice full of frustration and anger. The assistant, now visibly rattled, straightened up and replied, "Firstly, he wasn't kidding about me staying still. Secondly, I've never seen fighting skills like that before. Skills so advanced that they are nearly impossible to counter." The cult leader scowled, shaking his head. "Once you're finished praising the enemy, let me know." The assistant took a deep breath, clearly focused on the strange encounter. Whoever he was, it's clear he wanted your necklace more than your life. And from what I saw, he's got some serious magic skills too." Her eyes narrowed as she thought more about the magic Mr. Gray had used. "I've seen this type of magic before. It's trackable." As she said this, her gaze shifted to the floor, where dust particles lingered in the air. She knelt down, her fingers brushing lightly against the dust where Mr. Gray had disappeared. The particles seemed to shimmer slightly, leaving a faint trace of his presence behind. Puff! In a flash, Mr. Gray appeared in a new location, the air around him crackling with the remnants of his magic. Nigeria, AKWA IBOM State, 5:10 p.m. He walked toward an old, weathered house, its structure clearly aged but still standing strong. As he approached the door, he raised his hand and knocked firmly. Knock. Knock. The door creaked open slowly, and a masked figure peered out cautiously, their eyes narrowing as they studied Mr. Gray. Creak. The figure didn't speak, but there was an unspoken understanding in the air. Mr. Gray simply stood there, waiting for whatever would come next. Cut to the morning, 6 a.m. Mr. Gray was in a secluded area, training as the sun began to rise. His movements were fast and precise, but something about his form seemed off. With a sharp motion, his speed allowed him to slice an apple cleanly in half. His focus was intense, but just as he was about to resume his routine, the masked figure from the previous night approached quietly from behind. "Is something wrong, Gray?" the masked figure asked, their voice calm but laced with concern. "You used to be much faster than that, old friend." Mr. Gray didn't turn immediately, but after a moment, he let out a small hum of acknowledgement. He finally spoke, his voice measured and calm. "Oracle, it's nothing. I'm fine. Are you done with the magic beats?" Cut to 12 p.m. Now, standing in the same spot, Oracle turned toward Mr. Gray with a calm expression, ready to share their progress. "I'm done with your magic beads, Gray." Mr. Gray, his movements still fluid but filled with a quiet determination, walked over to retrieve the beads. "Thanks. I need to borrow some of your books on this demon. Tomorrow, under the full moon, I face him. He holds one of the 9 artifacts." Oracle responded without hesitation, their voice steady but laced with concern. "Reading about him won't make the fight easier, Gray. You'll need help, and you know it. He may look like a small demon, but don't underestimate him." Their tone shifted to a more serious note as they added, "If you can't defeat him, then you shouldn't even think about going after the devil." "Can you hear that?" Oracle asks, her voice tense. Before Mr. Gray can answer, a loud boom fills the air as an explosion rocks the surroundings. Oracle instantly raises a shield, using her powers to protect Mr. Gray from the blast. Through the smoke, the cult leader of the Red Skull cult steps forward, a sinister grin on his face. "I'm pretty sure you're shocked that we found you." Mr. Gray, unfazed, responds coolly, "Yeah, I'm shocked. Shocked that you came all this way just to die." The cult leader glares at him, then raises his hand, shouting to his armed men, "Fire." At his command, the armed men opened fire on Mr. Gray. But with swift precision, Mr. Gray used his swords to deflect the bullets, the metal flashing in the dim light as he moved with lightning speed. "What are you waiting for?" Since the cult leader said, "Get him," he rushed toward the armed men, taking them down one by one with unmatched skill and agility. The cult leader, watching in disbelief, muttered under his breath, "Something's wrong, he wasn't this fast the last time we fought." As Mr. Gray charged toward the cult leader, his sword raised to strike, the cult leader swiftly blocked the attack with his own weapon. However, in that brief moment of distraction, one of the cult leader's men, the minion, moved in close. He placed his hand on Mr. Gray's head, his fingers glowing with dark energy as he attempted to enter Mr. Gray's mind, aiming to shut him down by destroying him from within. The minion spoke to himself, his voice filled with dark intent. "Now to find the memory where he hid the necklace, so this guy can finish him off." But as he ventured deeper into Mr. Gray's mind, something felt wrong. The atmosphere inside was unlike anything he had encountered before. "Wait, something isn't right. The mind isn't supposed to be this dark." The minion's voice trembled as he realized the gravity of the situation. Oh my God. No, stay away from me." A piercing scream echoed through his mind, and the minion recoiled in terror. The minion stumbled back, panic-stricken, his mind reeling from the darkness he had just encountered. Oh my God, "Oh my God. Oh my God," he muttered frantically, his voice shaking with terror. In a daze, he ran toward the cult leader, his hands trembling as he seized the cult leader's weapon. The cult leader, confused and angry, shouted, "Hey!" Before the cult leader could react, a loud bang echoed through the air as the minion turned the weapon on himself, his body falling limp to the ground. The cult leader stood frozen, staring in shock at the lifeless body of his own man. "What the hell are you?" he demanded, his voice full of disbelief. Mr. Gray slowly turned toward the cult leader, his face cold and unreadable. He raised a finger to his lips, motioning for silence. Mr. Gray charged toward the cult leader, his movement swift and lethal. In a single, fluid motion, he decapitated the cult leader, the head falling to the ground as the rest of the cultists were swiftly eliminated. But just as the last of the cultists fell, a voice interrupted the silence. "Looking for your friend. She's over here." It was the cult leader's assistant, dragging Oracle's body behind her. Without a second thought, Mr. Gray hurled his sword toward her, the blade piercing the wall and pinning her in place. Mr. Gray rushed to Oracle's side, his heart racing. "Are you?" Oracle stirred slightly, her voice weak but determined. "Never mind, Emmy, I don't have enough time. I cast a teleportation spell to take you where you need to go. There, you'll find her." Mr. Gray's eyes widened. "Who?" "Oracle. Oracle." Mr. Gray whispered under his breath, his voice barely audible. She knew this would happen. In an instant, Mr. Gray and Oracle vanished in a flash of light, leaving the chaos behind. Cut to. A few minutes later, the scene shifted back to the cult leader's assistant. She let out a low hum, clearly intrigued by what had just unfolded. The next moment, Mr. Gray materialized in a dense forest, his surroundings unfamiliar and eerie. As he moved forward, he noticed a teenage girl dragging the body of an older man into a deep hole. The girl paused and turned to face him, her expression one of confusion and defiance. "What?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of suspicion.